Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. I know we had said we were going to go live at 2 p.m. Pacific and 5 p.m. Eastern, but due to forces unbeknownst to us, we needed to move things up to 1:30 p.m. and 4:30 Eastern. Happy to welcome Marc Adams here.
What's up,
You may
Ted?
know him. Hey, what's up, Marc? From 49ers Camelot. That's at 49ers Camelot on Twitter, also YouTube. Let me get your banner rolling here as well. But, we've had a few shows together, a couple times here on
Yeah,
my channel, once or twice on your channel as well, too. And just happy to have you back, chop things up. I want to congratulate you. Your channel's growing nicely, and you're doing
appreciate
great
that.
things over there. So happy to see that and happy for you. And
Yeah,
let everybody know like what I may have missed, anything you got coming up that you want to promote, anything like that.
yeah. I've just done written up a couple of things for 49ers Web Zone the last 2 days. So you can go to 49erswebzone.com and check those out. Also, just trying to keep up with doing the 49ers Camelot show. That's on YouTube. It's on Apple, like wherever you watch or listen, that's where you can find it. So just trying to do that and keep up. Tomorrow, Friday on my show, Friday morning, I'm going to have Gina G from Gina repping the Bay.
Nice.
She's so cool, and so I'm excited to have her.
Gina's great, no doubt about it. Paul Hope says you have some of the best guests on your shows. He's saying, "What's up, Marc? Two of the best."
What's up,
Jess
Paul?
from
I
East Coast.
had Paul on. Gosh, I mean, you like Ted. You were one of my first ones.
I think
Had
I
John
was,
Chapman. I
yeah.
had John Chapman first because he told me he had been pushing me to do this, and he said, "When you do it, I'll be your first guest." So I had to give him a break, because he doesn't get very much exposure. So, so
Poor
I had
guy.
to. He was kind enough to come on, and then I had you right after that, and had Paul in there right there at the beginning too, and so y'all you've been great. I appreciate the support and help. You've helped me with tech things, like, hey, how do I do this or that? So I appreciate that.
Anytime, anytime. And Paul said he needed to check out his articles. So I think he's talking about you, but I also write articles as well. More in season, I do the preview and summary articles each week for the games. I haven't done any yet this off season, but I probably need to do some. It's probably a good reminder.
It's
But
hard to
definitely
do.
make sure you check out Marc at the Web Zone.
Yeah, appreciate it. But man, it's hard. Like, it's easier to do, in my opinion, it's easier to do podcasts and things like that where you're talking to other people in the off season, but to sit down and write during the off season's tough. So I've actually done a couple of, over the last month or so, a couple of like top 10 worst draft picks in 49ers history, top 10 this or that, like history kind of stuff, because it's hard unless there's an OTA session that we get news about. It's hard to come up with things to write about sometimes.
There you go. Looks like we got an Eagles fan in the house. He says, oh, yes, it says Dallas sucks with an eagle on there. So are the 49ers fans ever going to stop crying about their loss to the Eagles in the NFC Championship game?
Gosh,
That's
I
kind
didn't
of
know
interesting.
I hadn't heard anybody crying about it, but we won't stop crying about the 5 Lombardis that we have. So
There you go. Exactly. And, as far as the Eagles fans go, I mean, I've definitely saw some stuff where Debo has mentioned it a few times, like it was 10 against 11 and would have
oh,
been different if we had one more QB. And then some Eagles fans, a big Eagles fan was crying about the rule change that, the three QBs active on game day rule change. And I was just like, and he's like, well, why didn't they do that when Carson Wentz got knocked out by Jadeveon Clowney? And then I forget who their backup quarterback was. It was the old guy, the 40-year-old journeyman quarterback. Why? And he like tore his hamstring and, and I'm like, you know what the difference is? I'm like, basically the difference is that in that year, which was 2019, when the Eagles got in that year, the only reason why they got in was because they were in the NFC least. And I know things have changed, and the NFC East is one of the more dominant conferences now. I'll give them credit for that. But back then we called it the NFC least because they were terrible. And the Eagles got in with a 9-7 record out of the NFC East. And they played the Seahawks, who ended up like with the 5th overall seed because we beat them to get the number 1 seed in 2019. And basically it was like neither of those teams was going to go to the Super Bowl, you know? And so the NFL probably didn't really care much about what happened in that game. Whereas in the game that we played against the Eagles just now in the NFC Championship, obviously one of those teams was going to the Super Bowl. And I mean, because like the Seahawks won that game after Jadeveon Clowney knocked out Carson Wentz, but then they lost the next game. We know this because the Seahawks have only won. That's the only playoff game the Seahawks have won in the last 6 seasons was in 2019. So anyway, bottom line is there's a big difference between that and what happened in our game, where you've got the 2 best teams in the NFC. They've played several playoff games to get there. And, you know, we had beaten Dallas, who was arguably the next best team in the NFC after us and the Eagles. And, you know, all of a sudden, you know, I don't know if you've heard the saying, but they say that the worst time in a football game is the time between when the game is over and when it's finished. Right. And so like that game was over with 52 minutes left and we had to sit for 52 minutes till the time was actually expired and the game was finished.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was hard. And I respect the Eagles. They were really good. And so, you know, the 49ers very well could have lost even without Brock Purdy getting hurt. So, but you know, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, it was. You know, it's brutal. I mean, it is like, you know, even with Josh Johnson, we didn't have much of a chance and he got concussed. And then we were actually wishing for Jimmy G at one point, which, you know, you're in trouble if you're wishing for Jimmy G in a playoff game. But now we've got a whole different situation at quarterback where we've got Purdy, we've got Lance, we've got Darnold. I'd love to get your thoughts on the QB room and what we're hearing from OTAs and whatnot.
Well, yesterday, Kyle Shanahan said that Trey Lance has taken all of the first team reps so far, but he also said that as the offseason rolls along, that Sam Darnold is going to start getting more of the not more than Trey, but more than he's had before, which is 0. And so I don't understand that. And I wrote that today in my story for 49ers Web Zone, that I don't really understand why Sam Darnold is going to be getting these first team reps, but Kyle Shanahan knows a lot more than I do. And so I'm going to trust him and just hope that everything goes well. But it is interesting to note that Sam Darnold did fumble a snap yesterday against Air. So
and apparently threw an interception too.
Well, I didn't see that, but yeah, that's not a great start. But hey, he hasn't learned the playbook yet, so I'll give him a break.
There you go. And it looked like Lance was like 12-17, but from what I was seeing, a couple of those incompletions weren't his fault. So you could almost chalk that up to 14-17, which is pretty lofty numbers. I know, like you said, it's against Air, but it's still impressive when you get up into those 80-90% sort of ranges. Just kind of trying to catch up with the chat here a little bit. The Philly fan basically said he agrees with the rule change. Nobody wants to see a running back or wide receiver play quarterback. Glad to hear that because, like I said, some of the Philly fans were kind of, the guy was basically saying, why don't they take care of us? And I kind of gave my answer as to why. It's a totally different situation. Yeah, it's interesting to hear about maybe Sam Darnold maybe getting some first team reps. I don't know. We'll see. I'll believe it when I see it. At least as far as, like you said, probably not equal reps. And then there's some interesting news coming out too, about maybe Trey Lance has corrected his mechanics. Grant Cohn was pretty adamant last offseason that Lance was keeping his front leg straight
Yeah.
instead of bending that front knee. And so he was kind of having to pivot around it. And it seems like he's corrected that. It seems like he's tightened up his throwing motion and has a faster release. And they're saying he's throwing with a little less zip, which is actually a good thing when it comes to Trey Lance, and maybe a little more accuracy. So time will tell, but some encouraging news come out of camp about that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always good to hear. And he said yesterday, Trey did, that he's going to be returning back to Dallas to work with Jeff Christensen some more. So that's good. Glad to hear that. Hopefully it works, like when the bullets start to fly, hopefully this transformed mechanical thing will continue, because I think that he has loads of potential, and I want to see him be the guy. Nothing against Brock Purdy, but I think that Trey has more talent. So I'd like to see him be the guy long term.
No doubt about it. Yeah, most people would, although there are some people out there that are arguing some pretty crazy stuff. I just want to quickly say some highs to some people here. I got Bryant Culp in the house. We already said hi to Jess. Bebop Jones in the house, coming to us from the Philly area, but definitely a Niners fan. Dion Jones from Niner Game Podcast. Good afternoon, fellas. So thanks, everybody, for coming to join. We appreciate it. Bryant's saying 1991 to 2010, we were allowed 3 QBs, so I don't know why they took that rule away. I think it just had to do with money. I think anytime you allow an extra roster spot, it's more people that have to get paid each day, and the owners are cheap, and they ideally would like to avoid it. But I think the big thing was, like, the Philly fan that was commenting about that was basically saying, like, the Niners cried so much that the NFL changed the rule. And I said, it wasn't really that. It was really the NFL was crying because they lost so much revenue,
right?
Because of what I was saying, because of how long it was between when the game was over and when the game and the time elapsed.
Yeah.
That they lost a ton of money, and they wanted to make sure that hopefully never happens again. And so this is a way. Maybe it costs owners a little bit more each Sunday, but you have a fail-safe of it costing you a ton on one of the biggest playoff games of the year, the NFC Championship games.
Yeah.
Cinnamon Kiss in the house saying hello, Ted and Mark. Let's see here. I got to kind of show them all since there's people in both channels, because otherwise the people in your channel won't see what my people say and vice versa. But here's Mariah in the house. Hey, Mariah, how you doing? Nice to see you. Paul Hope and Tommy Huxley. Lakers stink. Let's get that out of the way. Well, poor LeBroom got swept. It's really us Warrior fans are crying real hard about it. I like to say that the Warriors sitting in Cancun and sipping margaritas won as many Western Conference Finals games as the Lakers did playing in it. So,
yeah, that's crazy.
It's like people say that's loser talk to make fun of the team that beat you, but I don't care. We hate LeBron, and it's not like this is the first incident with LeBron. I mean, we got our first ring against him in 2014-15. Then the refs handed him one in 2015-16, and then there was the 4-1 and the sweep with KD. And then, of course, finally we got a ring without LeBron being involved when we beat the Celtics last year. But anyway, I don't want to go too much about the Warriors. I know the Niners fans are divided over this. There's a lot of Lakers fans in Niners fandom. There's a lot of Kings fans in Niner fandom. And I made a lot of enemies, being a real, hardcore Dubs fan. So hopefully we can patch the, mend the fences and unburn the bridges if possible. But love to get your thoughts on other stuff we're hearing from camp. I mean, sounds like the kickers both missed wide left on a 48-yard attempt. Like, what are the odds of that? They hit the first 3 and both missed the fourth one the same day. I mean, did we blow it picking Moody in the 3rd round? What we haven't talked since the draft, so we can kind of
I don't
mix
think
in some draft talk with it.
I don't think that was a mistake. I would have liked to have seen Robbie Gould come back and then pick up Moody, just because rookie kickers tend to struggle, and so that part makes me a little bit concerned. But I'm not too concerned. It's one practice, and so I'm not going to freak out at this point. If he's just terrible into his rookie season, then I might start getting a little concerned. But at this point, nah.
There you go. It's just, I agree. I think I was a little worried when we took him in the third round. Well, I mean, technically, it's not exactly the third round, right? Third round comp pick. It's kind of more of a glorified fourth, really, if we're
Right.
being honest about it. But this year with us having the 30th pick in the third round, or would have if we hadn't shipped it, they're kind of similar to what our third round pick would have been. But bottom line was, I was a little worried. As I tweeted the next day when the draft resumed, I tweeted something like, didn't we get Zane Gonzalez so that we wouldn't have to reach on a kicker and we wouldn't have to overpay Robbie Gould? Like, I thought that was the whole point of Zane Gonzalez. And then, the Patriots drafted Chad Ryland at 112, just 13 spots later. I started to feel a little better. I mean, I guess there's two, sort of schools of thought. One is like, oh, okay, that justifies us taking him there. The other one is like, two wrongs don't make a right. Just because the Patriots made a mistake and took their kicker, pretty early in the fourth, doesn't mean that we were right to take ours earliest in the fourth, which is third round comp. But time will tell. It'll be interesting to see. I had Brian Peacock on, and he had an interesting theory. I don't know if you've heard this, Mark, but he said kickers are like reverse running backs. He said, what I mean, Ted, is if you look at all the most dominant kickers in history, like they're all like in their mid to late 30s, right? Yep. And so, and whereas running backs are usually their best right out of school. And so, he was just saying it's really tough for a young kicker, like even a great one like Jake Moody, to latch on and really make it early on in the NFL. He even mentioned he wouldn't be surprised if we carried two kickers this season. If Zane beats out Moody, because I said, all right, here's my thing. I was saying, here's my two doomsday scenarios for the offseason. One is, Darnold beats out Lance for QB1 or QB2, whatever it is, depending on Purdy's health. And the other one is Zane Gonzalez beats out Moody, and then you have to trade Moody for pennies on the dollar because you clearly can't expose him to the practice squad because he'll be snapped up in an instant. So I don't know. Just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, one of the reasons that they went after a kicker in the draft is because Zane Gonzalez has a history of being injured. And so I think that is an issue. And so they're not going to trade Jake Moody. They're not going to, like you said, they're not going to stash him on the practice squad. He's going to be on the roster. Now, if Zane Gonzalez is so much better than him, then it will be interesting to see. I don't know what they would do, but I don't see them trading Jake Moody because they're not going to get a third rounder for him.
No, that's what I meant. Pennies on the dollar. I'm sure we'd have to take a huge cut. But yeah, I mean, Peacock said maybe keep two kickers. But then it's like, okay, we got two kickers, three QBs. Like, where's our like extra tight end or extra running back or D lineman or some of these other positions we like to carry extra people at running back because we got Juice as an extra running back already too, who doesn't play a running back position at fullback. So it's kind of interesting. And they're saying they're kind of joking, saying Moody is a bust, but that they would have liked to see him make that 48, but it's just OTA. I did hear that there was a pretty brisk headwind too. So that 48 might have felt a lot more like a 55 or I'm not going to say 60, but it can get pretty breezy down there in Santa Clara. There's almost always a pretty good breeze when I've been to games there.
I think that if they end up doing anything, I think that what would happen is Jake Moody's going to get the job out of training camp. He's going to be the opening day starter. And then late in the season, if they're having problems with him, then at that point, maybe they bring in somebody else and carry 2 kickers at that point. But I don't think they're going to carry 2 right out of the gate.
It'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I guess Gonzalez is somewhat cuttable. It's interesting. Dion was mentioning trading for Gonzalez, and technically we did trade for Gonzalez, but like it was like a 2025 7th round pick swap. So like you're talking about the least painful trade and I've ever heard of. It was about as close to a signing as you can have for a trade. And the nice thing is that we got him for a cheap price, both in 2021 cap, but not only that, but none of it's guaranteed. So if we do decide, we can take him all the way through OTAs and camp, and if we decide we don't like him, we just cut him, and we don't owe him a penny. And so that's a pretty good situation to be in. I think because the last team, it must have been the Panthers, I think already paid some of his 2023 salary.
Yeah.
So as a bonus, must have been. So let's see. Paul says Gonzalez was leveraged for Robbie. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah,
Bebop says, I feel like the office should have known the rule would change. I mean, I think they might have when they signed, spent so much money.
You're talking about the quarterback rule?
I think the quarterback rule. I think that's what he meant. Got Jim Everett the Great, Rams fan in the house saying Tommy Huxley, Trey Lance starts week 1. I think so. Rams number 1. Sorry, pal. I got some bad news for you.
You know what I was thinking about today? I don't know if you were on this, but Gina G had me on a podcast right before the season started, and there were a couple of Rams content creators on there, and there was a couple of other 49ers content creators. And I don't know if you were in that one, but these Rams guys were so arrogant, and they're like, we're going to repeat. And I said, look, I think you have a good team, but you're about to find out what it's like to be the defending champs. It's a real thing. And they're like, no way, man, we're going to repeat. Yeah, it's hard when you're the target.
They said they were going to run it back, Mark, and I just said they didn't need to add an I. All they did was ruin it back, and like, these guys like to say they run the chat or they run the West. And I said, no, the only thing they've been running is their stars out of town lately. So Ryan's taking receipts, it looks like. What we got? Everybody's here. Kicking roll. Oh, he's saying the kicking roll would have changed. Oh,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
kickoff.
Maybe saying it's a mistake. Well, ultimately, I just don't think that it's that big of a deal, because the problem we had wasn't people, downing kicks inside the 10 or wherever they were being caught. The problem was they're actually returning them out to the 35, 40-yard line. Like if they downed them and got them at the 25, that's the same thing as a kick out of the end zone. I see. I guess the only way it would really make a big difference is if you really think a lot of people would be downing those kicks and just taking it at the 25 instead of the bigger returns. But I don't think it really changes that much. I think you still want a strong leg kicker who can make 55-plus yard field goals, and I still think you want to bang them out so that there's no chance that they get a big run back.
Yeah.
Even if they could down it and get it at the 25.
Right.
So I don't think it's as big a deal as that maybe seems. Delusional Rams fans aren't as bad as Cowboy fans. That's true. That's
very
true. True. Not many worse than delusional Cowboys fans. Let's see. They're also saying, Dion was also saying something about, USC quarterbacks are trash, so Darnold won't be on that. Now, Carson Strong? No, what was his name? Carson, not Wentz. Carson, not Strong. I'm blanking on his name. Who went to USC and played for the Cardinals for a lot of years. I think they went to the Super Bowl with them. Carson Palmer was a decent USC quarterback, but never won a ring. Poor fella. So obviously because the Cardinals, no Phoenix teams other than maybe the Diamondbacks, but no, the Suns and the Cardinals, they both have empty trophy racks. So, let's see here. Running their mouths. Oh yeah, Bebop Jones is saying the Rams running their mouths. LOL. Yeah, that's true. Rams have the most stacked, powerful offense in the NFC. Let's see. So they got Darnold or Stafford, and they've got Cooper Cup, and who's their running back? Who's their is Higbee still there? Their tight end. I know they lost Allen
Yeah, I don't
Robinson.
know.
I mean, I guess they have like Van
Still have Aaron
Jefferson.
Donald, so
Yeah,
uh,
AD. But they lost
um,
Bobby Wagner.
well, you're
They
talking
lost.
offense.
Oh yeah.
The most powerful offense in the NFC. Come on,
Well,
Jim.
He was talking some trash about Stetson Bennett. Here, wait. I'm gonna come back up to this. Stetson Bennett, Montana.
Montana
Stetson
Magic.
Magic Bennett. I said Stetson Bennett is just drunk Purdy. That's all he is.
Hey, the guy wins though,
Per-
so I hope that he doesn't bring that to LA. But
yeah, but with the number one D and crazy, weapons, and I mean, he was thrown to that. Darnell Washington cat, that 6'8" tight end who's like he made the blocking sled just look like child's play at the combine and the
yeah,
one arm step. Speaking of him, that was my one thing when we drafted Jair Brown. That moved up to draft him at number 87, and about 6 picks later, the Steelers took Darnell Washington at 93, and I was like, oh, I hope we don't like look back on that one and regret it because he was one of my kind of draft crushes. I guess he has a knee issue. Somebody said a back issue at first, and more recently I've seen a knee issue, so maybe that's it. But I hope that doesn't end up being one that we regret. We'll see. Silly fun guy in the house, another Rams fan. Much cooler one though. He says a neutron walks into a bar. Bartender hands him a drink and says no charge. Oh. Because neutrons, they don't have a positive or a negative charge. Yeah. He does the dad jokes always, so I appreciate it. It's always fun. And rule change is good means Moody keeps the juice for 60-yard bombs. Paul's saying something, but yeah, have you seen him throw the football? I guess he throws the ball well. I had never heard that before. Had you heard anything about that, Mark?
No.
Moody having a good
I
arm?
assumed the 60-yard bomb was a kick, but maybe he's talking about throwing. I don't know.
He said something about, have you seen Moody's arm? I could swear in the higher chat. I'm not going to look because there's too many. But Jim Everett says Stafford throws 80-yard bombs. Purdy is dink and dunk as a QB. Yeah, but you were just talking about Stetson Bennett, weren't you? I mean, Stafford does throw bombs, no doubt. But Stafford also throws a lot of interceptions, especially if you pressure him. So I don't know. We'll see. That's interesting. Steve Supremo in the house. He's giving us a chuckle. Bryant Culp saying Moody will make captain before the season starts. A lot of people are saying offensive rookie of the year, although technically he's not offense, right? He's special teams, but maybe rookie of the year due to because kickers, they score more than most anybody else on the team usually.
Yeah, I don't know about a kicker winning that award, but hey, I'm up for it. I'd love to see that happen.
There you go. Tommy says Akers is the most overrated running back in history. He's, the poor guy. He came back so quick from that Achilles. Like I don't think I've ever seen anybody come back 6 months from an Achilles. But it's like it seems like mentally, like even if he was physically right, mentally he wasn't right. Like he had all these fumbles, and he just doesn't seem like the same player since he came back. Maybe he rushed it too much. I mean, that was something that I was talking about for Purdy was like everybody's like, oh, well, Kyle says Purdy's ahead of schedule, and Kyle says, hopefully he'll be back week 1. I'm like, hopefully just means that's like best case scenario, right? I mean, that's not like saying it will happen.
Yeah.
And you mentioned John Chapman. He had a quote of Purdy, and he said, Brock Purdy's goal is week 1, but ... And there's the video clip, and I said ... But Purdy isn't going to let Kyle or anyone else rush him back because he was pretty much like, yeah, we'll see. I'm not making any promises. I don't want to say anything that I have to back off of or that gets used against me in the future. And I think that's really smart of him for sure. Dion's saying Rams are stacked with garbage. Pretty much. They have Stafford, they have Cup, and they have Aaron Donald, and the rest, it's pretty thin. They lost Bobby Wagner, they lost Jalen Ramsey. A lot of names we know. And some, beyond Allen Robinson, there's also a Sean Robinson, the defensive tackle. Greg Gaines, who's a real good defensive tackle. So Aaron Donald. Leonard Floyd is still a free agent, but I doubt he'll end up back with the Rams. So that D line is in shambles, I would say. Tommy says Dion, plain and simple. Oh boy, Tommy, that's Roger fumbles Craig. Oh, ouch. That's painful.
First off, you have to spell his name right, and that's not the way you spell.
Oh, no D. There we go. Good catch.
I mean, come on, that's one play, and Roger Craig has more Super Bowl rings than the entire Rams organization, and one of their rings came when they were in St. Louis.
Oh yeah, they all claim that they were St. Louis fans, but we know that's a lie.
Yeah, I think they're going to be hurting so much this year that guy at their stadium, the Who's House guy, I think he's going to have to play this year because, like you said, they've lost a lot of players, and I don't know how much longer Aaron Donald's going to be there. I don't know how much longer their coach is going to be there. So maybe Sean McVay moves on after this coming season. Who knows? It's going to be interesting.
Tommy Huxley said Jim sacked himself Everett.
Yeah.
I thought it was Chris Everett, wasn't it?
True story. Sacked himself.
Oh man. Why popcorn cool? It's never hot.
Dad joke, eh?
Dad jokes. I Silly Funky starts it, and then sometimes I'll chime in and use other people's. He said he made it up himself. Well, good one, Steve. We appreciate it. Ted Stafford is the pick six king of the West. Oh man, Stafford is. He had a few, including. I guess just the one against us was Ambry Thomas, but no, Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward had that one.
Or Hufanga. Didn't Hufanga?
Hufanga too, yes. Yeah, where he got up to 21 miles an hour. In fact, I was at that game, but I was walking to the car. We had a family issue and had to leave the game early. But he hit 21 miles an hour. That's when everybody's like, well, 4.6 doesn't mean much if you can hit 21 miles an hour on GPS. So
right.
Oh boy, Steve. Some might say it's corny. The popcorn joke.
Man.
Dad jokes are usually not that funny, but very punny, and so there's a great example of it. Tommy says Bosa over under 7 sacks on Stafford. I'm going to go under, but not by much. I think he'll get 5 sacks on Stafford. How many do you think, Mark? Oh my!
Well, they're only going to play them twice because the Rams aren't going to be in the playoffs. So, yeah, I would say probably 4.
There we go. All the Rams have is Donald, Stafford, and Cup. Your coach about to retire had to throw money in to stay. I'm just saying. Pretty true. Wags is washed, but Wags is back in Seattle now. So.
Yeah.
Floyd to the Niners. I wouldn't mind that. I'd rather get Ngakoue, but he's not good against the run, but I don't care. I want a speed rush guy like D Ford. D Ford wasn't good against the run either.
Yeah.
Bring him in just for second and long and third downs. That's fine. Interactive Museum in St. Louis is crazy fun. Never been. Good to know. Thanks, Bebop. Most rivals. Come into another chat. Before we play, and what's wrong? Yeah, the Rams fans they tend to persist. There's a few that are just love our chats. It's not the Rams' fault, and not the Rams fans' fault, Mark. There just aren't any good Rams content creators. I mean, there's one that I've had on a couple times, Peo Time. He's a Canadian Rams content creator, but for the most part, they don't have a lot of good creators. So it's not their fault. We got Levi's South. We can have Rams audience North. Bebop saying overlooked old Ram Stadium. You're talking about the Coliseum in LA. Let's see, I'm just saying I'm calling a 50 burger. We score week 2. I wouldn't be surprised. I think we're gonna have a tough game week 1. Have you talked much with people about the schedule, Mark? And like,
Not really.
did you see the travel inequities that we have? Like where we're minus 20 rest days, and there are at least 3 teams at plus 12. The Jets, Bears, and one other team are all plus 12. So they literally have 32 more rest days than us in a 4-month season. They have over a month of rest more. I think that'll add up. I mean, I was kind of thinking 13-4 or 12-5. I'm thinking more like 12-5 or 11-6 now, just because of that.
It's going to be hard. I mean, when you think about playing on a Monday night and then having to go and play Cincinnati, that's not going to be an easy one. I think there was another really hard game where they don't have much rest. I think Seattle's coming off of a mini bye. When the 49ers go and play the Bengals, not only are they playing on Monday night, but Cincinnati's coming off of a bye. So they're going to have some tough ones. And I think that opening game against Pittsburgh is going to be a tough one as well. The Steelers have a really good defense, and the 49ers usually start off a little slow. And so that could, even though they're clearly better than the Steelers, they could drop that game simply because of the circumstances. We don't even know who the quarterback's going to be.
We don't. And I mean, I think, what are they, like 14-2 or 15-1 in openers in the last 16 years? It's something crazy like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the Steelers have a really good defense. They've got TJ Watt back. They had some issues with their secondary, but they did a lot to address that. So, I mean, it could be a tough, and they were, what were they, like 7-2 to close out the season last year too, or something like that? So they were pretty hot the second half of last season. So if they can continue that momentum into this season, I'm not looking at that as an easy one. I mean, I'm probably thinking that might be a loss for us, unfortunately. We'll see. Yeah. Just want to say hi to Beto, Niner Sickness in the house. Also, we got Rookie and Friends. I don't think I've seen that one before. He said, how many sacks for Drake Jackson this year?
It's going to be single digits. If he has 7 or 8, I think that would be decent. I mean, I'd love to see him in double digits, but we just don't yet know what to expect. He came into OTAs, bulked up a little bit, but by all accounts, that even though he was bulked up, he still looked as quick. So hopefully that's going to benefit him. Hopefully he's in better shape so he doesn't lose some steam down the stretch like he did last season. But I think that he could get close to 10, but I'm going to say he comes in under that for sure. Especially because I just don't know how much he's going to play. I don't know what the rotation is going to look like.
No doubt about it. I think 7 or 8, I'd be pretty happy with that. I think 5 or 6, 7 might be more like what I would think. But it sounds like he's rocked up, so that's a good start. They were saying he was a little doughy last year, so I don't know. We'll see. Dion says Drake Jackson 5 to 8. He's kind of agreeing with us there. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable number. I think 5 would be the baseline, kind of like Omenahu and Ebukam, and I think a little bit more makes a little more sense. 6, 7, 8. Yeah, but I like that. And they're just saying hi to each other. So as far as other folks on the D line, obviously we added Javon Hargrave, huge addition, really going to help take some attention off of Bosa. I had an Eagles fan trying to tell me, how great could Bosa be if he needs help? I'm like, dude, everybody needs help. I'm like, if you're an Eagles fan and you're talking about not needing help, you don't know your own team, because their D line has literally the most help of any D line. They're the deepest D line in the league. Like, so anyway, it's just kind of funny because he was saying that we were poverty, and I'm like, well, if we're poverty, then how come we signed your player Hargrave that you couldn't afford? Like, that doesn't seem like poverty to me.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Yeah, it's trolls. You know, they say things, they say anything they can to get a rise. But some of them I've had to block recently. I give people plenty of warning. I say, like, take your nonsense to someone else, and I'm done with this conversation. Final warning. And like, oh, you're gonna block me? I'm like, yeah, you're smarter than I thought. Bye. So, what are you gonna do? So then, as far as other news coming out of camp, I mean, it sounds like they're happy with McKivitz at right tackle. Sounds like Burford is beefed up at right guard. How are you feeling about right side of the O-line? How are you feeling about Brendel at center? I feel like we're pretty good with, Trent Williams and Banks, assuming no injuries, right? But
yeah, I think that Brendel was better than most thought. I actually had high expectations for him because I knew that that the 49ers were pretty high on him and that they had really gone out of their way to get him. And then when they did, Kyle Shanahan said he was better than advertised. So I was expecting good things. I think that I saw that he scored really well from a pass blocking standpoint, but not as well from a run blocking standpoint. So that was kind of interesting because the 49ers are so geared toward running the ball. But I'm not that hurt over that because they need, especially right up front, they need to protect their quarterbacks better. So I'm good with Brendel. Good with Burford. I think that he's going to be fine. And Colton McKivitz, when he's played, he's done okay. So I think he may be a better pass blocker than Mike McGlinchey. He's definitely not going to be as good in run blocking, but I think that they're probably going to be okay with him.
Yeah, I think McKivitz is a better pass blocker, and hopefully he can improve his run blocking some. I agree 100% with Brendel. Like, I thought we might draft a center this year because I thought Kyle might want somebody who's better run blocking there. But clearly, like, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. So the quickest way into a quarterback's face is right over the center. Mm-hmm. And so having one that's a good pass blocker is, I was happy that we signed him, Brendel. I thought 4 years, $20 million was a good price. I don't feel like we overpaid. And once that happened, then I was, less thinking that we would acquire a center. I had a good buddy who loved that center out of Michigan that the Seahawks took one pick before we picked Robert Beal in the 5th round, Tommy or whatever his name is, the center from Michigan. And apparently he's real good at pass blocking too, but that's college, so harder to tell if it would apply in the pros. But hopefully that's not another one of those ones that got away where we're like, oh man, I really wish we'd taken that guy.
Yeah.
But
they drafted, or they didn't draft. They signed a couple of undrafted rookie linemen, Ilm Manning and Joey Fisher. They're both going to be guards, I'm guessing, but there is the possibility that one of them could end up being moved to center as well. So maybe they didn't draft a center, but maybe they brought in somebody that they're going to give a look there.
Yeah, that's possible too. I hadn't even thought of that. And, ultimately, I thought we would draft a right tackle for sure. And we didn't. And it's sort of one of those things where last year, it sounds like you weren't one, but I was definitely one of the people who was like center. And they believed in Brendel and it worked out. So maybe a lot of us saying right tackle, maybe we're wrong too. And maybe McKivitz really is the answer. So fingers crossed that that's the case. We'll see.
Let me ask you something. Since we've talked some about the OTAs, I wasn't shocked that Nick Bosa and Trent Williams didn't show up, but I kind of expected Deebo Samuel to show up. Talanoa Hufanga also didn't show up. Javon Hargrave didn't show up. And I kind of thought Hargrave might because he's new, but with Deebo, how he kind of held out last year or held in or whatever it was he did. And then he came in out of shape. He never was quite the Debo that he was the year before. What did you think about Debo, especially Debo, but some of the others who didn't show up? What did you think about those?
Yeah, I mean, I guess time will tell with Debo. If he's off doing his own thing the way Bosa does, and I know it's not like Bosa. Bosa, it's funny. Somebody was talking about, how they always say we're optimistic for this return, we're optimistic for that return, and it's like, when were they optimistic when it actually hit that timeline?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only time ever was Bosa. You can definitely look at Jet McKinnon. You can look at D Ford. You can look at Jalen Hurd as probably the most radical example of like, oh, we think he'll be back soon. And
Mm-hmm.
he never played a snap. But, so I'm not going to sit here and say that Debo's doing things like Bosa does on his own. But, he could be doing enough to be in shape. And I just think that, if you want to ingrain yourself in the team and become a leader, you should be there. And it's like, clearly McCaffrey's there and he's working his tush off. And he's sort of saying like, hey, I'm the guy. And Debo's sort of like, okay, you're the guy. I mean, I feel like he's just, now that's for now. We'll see what happens in camp. But I'm not super concerned about it. Hargrave, yeah, he's new. I think he should be there. But I think part of it, too, is just, it's expensive in California. And some guys are just like, almost nobody actually lives here. And so some guys are probably just like, hey, I'm going to save some money, work out wherever I am. So we'll see how they come in. But if any of those guys have issues, I guess somebody said they saw Hufanga recently and he was pretty rocked up. I think he was at the kickball game. I don't know if you heard, there was like a Niners San Jose PD kickball game.
Mm-hmm.
And Raj was there, I think, and he was saying that Hufanga looked like jacked. So that I thought was good news. So maybe, so then maybe it's not so much about not being in the area. But bottom line is, time will tell. If any of those guys have problems during the season, then we can look back and point to this. But, with Debo, he held out till August the 1st, right? Wasn't it August 1st of last year?
I don't remember. It was well into camp. Well into the summer, though.
Yeah. And so, or maybe it was September 1st? No, I think it was August 1st. So, I'm not concerned yet. But it's not a great look. I mean, especially for CMC, it is a really good look. So if there was any doubt of who the alpha between the two of them is, I'd say definitely CMC is winning that battle right now.
Yeah, and I think that I probably wouldn't be that concerned except for the fact that a year ago when Debo came in, he was not in shape. And I don't know if he was ready. I mean, that opening drive against the Bears, the 49ers moved the ball right down the field, and then inside the red zone, Debo fumbles, and the Bears take over, and the 49ers miss the opportunity to have an opening drive touchdown, possibly, that probably changes that game if he holds on to that ball. And I'm not saying that's because he held out, but you haven't been taking hits, and you're not really, Ayuk made a big play on that opening drive, 30 or 40 yards, I don't remember. And Debo really hadn't done, I'd have to go back and look, but that might have been the first time or maybe the second time that Debo touched the ball in the 2022 season. And so I just don't know if he was ready.
No, it was a huge play in that game. It was inside the red zone that Debo lost a fumble, and that equals 3 to 7 points lost off the score, plus momentum early in a game, which is huge too. And, not long after that, Mitchell got hurt, right? And so then it got a lot harder to move the ball. And, there was no CMC then. Kittle was out for that game. I've been going over this with a lot of Lance haters that are trying to pin that game on Lance.
Yeah,
I'm like, look,
same.
Lance was not great in that game. He was not. But he was not the reason we lost. We lost that game because Debo fumbled inside the 20, because our defense gave up 100 yards, almost 100 yards in penalties. But the big thing was it wasn't just the raw yardage. It was literally a drive extending penalty on every single Bears scoring drive. So they scored 3 TDs. We had 3 drive extending penalties. There was one on Dre, the roughing for 15 yards. There was a holding on Mooney Ward, Charvarius Ward, that gave them, both were third downs into first downs. And then Kinlaw on a second. It wasn't in goal, or it was in goal, but it was like around the 5, or they were on the 8, and it got him to around the 4 or 5, and gave him a first and goal. They gave him 4 downs from within 5 yards, and then they scored the third touchdown. So also the O-line was trash in that game. The Bears had a D end who got a sack and a half against us, and I don't think they got a sack and a half the rest of the season. So there was a lot. So I'm not going to say Lance was great in that game, but he did make some really nice throws. And that was what a poll I did today. I was getting arguing with some guy where I was saying Lance showed some flashes of greatness. Yeah. And he's like, no, he didn't. You're the one who says that. I'm like, okay. With people like that, I just do polls. I'm just like, okay, we'll do a poll and let the poll decide, because it was like almost 90% of the people agreed with me. And then they're like, oh, you worded it wrong, or you did this. And I'm like, okay, then you go do your own poll and let's see how it turns out.
Yeah.
Because I'm tired of arguing with unreasonable people. So yeah, it's brutal. That's like the one thing the Lance haters, they just all hang their hat on the Chicago game, and the thing that they don't understand is yeah, we weren't scoring a lot, but yeah, we didn't need to score a lot. It was a close game. And, by the time we were behind, then the sky opened up and nobody was scoring at that point. Nobody could score.
Yep.
And so to say that Lance cost us the game on the interception, yeah, we didn't score after that, but we had the ball several times and could have maybe scored if it wasn't, a deluge. And then another thing a lot of people forget is Gibson had an interception that he dropped in that game too. So, God bless him. He had 5 more during the rest of the season. But, that one was probably would have iced the game in our favor too. So,
yeah, pretty
crazy. But yeah, I hope we don't see that with Debo again. I don't think we will. I know that season, here's one thing I'll say about Debo, is that I know that when he broke his foot, okay, that was the season before. When was that he broke his foot? That must have been 2020. So Debo got that Jones fracture in his foot. And it was not during OTAs or camp or anything like that. He was working out with the footwork king and broke his foot. And so he was trying to get ready before the season. And then he was out for 3 or 4 months with the Jones fracture. And then he came back and he was overweight then. And he had a couple hammies in 2020. But I will say he was doing the extra effort to get in shape. The only thing I could see that might have changed it is that now that he's gotten paid. And so maybe, I hope he's not the type of person that was get their bag and just take their foot off the gas.
Yeah.
But there's that chance. That would be my concern.
Yeah. The way he plays, I don't see him being that way, but still, I hope that he comes in ready.
Yeah. And not out of shape and not about to pull a groin or pull a hamstring because he's not in good shape, or have a crucial fumble inside the red zone early in the first game of the season. Yeah. It was tough to come back from, for sure.
Yeah.
And then other than that, anything else you wanted to go over while we're here today? I think we've covered most of it.
Sounds
well, do you want to talk about draft picks at all, or?
We can. Speaking of which, it sounds like Ronnie Bell has dominated in the rookie minicamp, and in OTAs yesterday dominated again. So I know that Scott McLuhan said, I love him as a college player, not as an NFL prospect, but I'm hoping that the 49ers can pull something out of him, that maybe they can find that slot receiver that Kyle Shanahan's been hoping for, because this kid has great hands. He makes contested catches. He's not afraid to catch balls in traffic. And so I know he's not fast, but he's got a little bit of quickness. He's a good route runner. So hopefully he can make the team and do something well. But he's one that sounds like he's done really well. Darrell Luter Jr. Sounds like he made a nice play on a deep ball that Sam Darnold underthrew yesterday. So I think, of course, um, the top pick Jair Brown, everybody seems high on him. One interesting thing that I've picked up from rookie minicamp and from yesterday at OTAs is that the reporters that have been writing about this, I've seen multiple ones say that Jalen Graham has looked really good and D Winters has not. So sounds kind of like D Winters came into the offseason program maybe a little out of shape, but that Jalen Graham is just killing it so far.
That's what I've been hearing too. Absolutely. And with regards to Mr. Blanking on his name now, the wide receiver out of Michigan,
Ronnie Bell.
Ronnie Bell, thank you. Ronnie Bell. So, Scott McCloughan, for people who don't know, is a pretty influential GM scout type person. He helped build the core for the 49ers. And when we hired Harbaugh, we also hired Trent Baalke, to be our GM. And they made some small changes in 2011, between 2010 and 2011. But ultimately, well, not small. I mean, one was large. Obviously, I'm blanking on the defensive end's name, but who had all the alcohol-related issues.
Oh,
the DUIs.
Alden
Smith. So that was a big addition. And they added one of the safeties, and they added Bruce,
Miller.
The other guy who had, Miller, who's just got back in the news recently too for threatening a Congressman Swalwell. That was not good. Not good. That guy's a bad actor. This is part of the reason why we don't deal with character issues anymore, or deal with people who have character issues anymore. So, but McCloughan basically put together this core, and it was poorly coached by Singletary, and Harbaugh came in with some minor changes, like basically went to 3 NFC championships in a row and a Super Bowl between 2011, 2012, and 2013. And then what some people don't know is, or who do know that about McCloughan, is he also then went to Seattle and built the LOB for them, or was highly instrumental in putting together the LOB. So like when it comes to McCloughan, I'm going to totally trust him when it comes to DBs. When it comes to linebackers, I know he had picked not Willis, but Bowman. And Bowman wasn't being utilized just yet. And Harbaugh got Bowman, and Harbaugh and Fangio got him into the starting lineup. But McCloughan had gotten him onto the team. So I'm going to trust him with those type of picks. But I don't know that I totally trust him with wide receivers because, I think Crabtree might have been one of his picks. Mm-hmm. I know that Anquan Bolden wasn't his pick, who was a real good receiver for us around then. Otherwise, I felt like we were a desert for wide receivers from the time Alex Smith got here until Harbaugh, and then even after. Mm-hmm. It's been pretty slim pickings around here since T.O. in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Until Debo. So anyway, bottom line with McCloughan, I don't know that I totally trust him about running backs. I thought it was also interesting that McCloughan didn't have any opinions on Luter, D. Winters, and Robert Beal. And so Luter sounds like he's doing well. I haven't heard much about Robert Beal, but maybe him saying I don't have an opinion on D. Winters is just because he didn't like him, and maybe that's playing out now. So, like I said, I definitely trust him on linebackers because picked Bobby Wagner.
Yeah, there were some players that he said that he didn't get a chance to watch.
Review.
And so
I think he picked KJ Wright too.
Yeah, I think that's probably why. I mean, he was high on Cameron Latu, high on Braden Willis. From things that I hear so far is that Braden Willis has looked really good. And I haven't really heard anything on Cameron Latu, but McCloughan seemed high on both of them.
A lot of us were high on Braden. I mean, I was saying he might be my favorite draft pick. It's a 7th rounder, which is crazy. but we'll see. We'll see. Time will tell. It's very early, so no time to crown anybody just yet. No time to
Yeah.
freak out, call anybody a bust just yet. Just due to a 48-yard field goal missed into the wind or anything.
Yeah.
But interesting stuff, no doubt. Anything else that we should cover while we're here? We're coming up on an hour. I know we wanted to. You like to keep your show shorter, so I don't want to go too long if there's nothing else we've got. But I'm interested to see how Joey Fisher does. I'd heard he had trouble getting through a practice early in rookie camp, but I think a lot of people are hoping for him. Like, we didn't draft the right time. Here's a funny thing from the draft. So everybody got after us because we drafted a kicker in the third. But Mel Kiper, and I don't hold Mel Kiper in the highest of regards, but nonetheless, it's interesting that he had Joey Fisher mocked to us at 99. And so, wouldn't it be interesting if we had drafted Joey Fisher at 99, the tackle out of Shepherd, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, great draft. And then just drafted a tackle in the third round. Meanwhile, we got this hopefully great kicker, certainly the best kicker, arguably in the draft, or second best. Some people think Ryland's the best, but top 2 kicker in the draft, and we got the tackle anyway after the draft. It could turn out to be a genius move, but again, only time will tell. But it's kind of funny how sometimes people's perceptions change based on where you pick people up. So.
Yeah, and I've heard Matt Mayoko say a couple of different times on the radio that of all the rookies, which one is going to impact the 49ers season more than Jake Moody? There's not one. And I think that's a really good point, that maybe somebody steps up. Maybe Robert Bill steps up and gets double-digit sacks. Kind of doubt it because he's a project, but you never know. But yeah, he's right that Moody, one way or another, is going to impact the 49ers season more than any other rookie on the team in 2023.
No doubt about it. It was the only need we had at starter, because it sounds like Isaiah Oliver is doing good things at nickel. So that'll be interesting to see. But I think, could be Luter, could be Oliver, could be Womack potentially. I mean, I guess Womack filled in for Moody Ward. That was the other talk of camp, was that Ambry Thomas wasn't tapped to go on, first team when Charvarius Ward was out yesterday or the last couple of days.
Yeah, I'm not big on Ambry Thomas. When you go back to that game in 2021 that got the 49ers into the playoffs, when they beat the Rams.
The Rams game,
when they were down 21-0 or whatever that was, and they came back and won. And they came down, they scored, and then the Rams got the ball, and Ambry Thomas picked off Matthew Stafford. If you go back and look at that and stop it, to me, it looks like Odell Beckham Jr. had Ambry Thomas beat. And if Stafford puts the ball where he should have put it, then the Rams win that game. Most likely, unless he gets, knocked out of bounds or falls or whatever.
Right.
But I went back and watched that, and to me, it looks like Thomas had been beaten, but Stafford underthrew that, and Thomas made a great play. But I wasn't real confident in him. And so I was kind of glad that Diamador Lenore beat him out last year, because I was concerned about him.
It's very interesting, how things change with a better throw. And Stafford definitely throws a lot of bad balls under pressure. So it's interesting.
The one that the Jaquiski Tart dropped. I mean, that was in the NFC Championship. That was a horrible, horrible throw. And yet they still won. So you never know.
The one thing I say about that is, even if Tart holds on and wins and we go to the Super Bowl against the Bengals, I mean, I'm not going to say we couldn't have beat the Bengals, but I mean, I'm not one of those people sitting here saying we would have, or, absolutely for sure would have. Just because if you remember that Bengals game in Cincinnati in 2021, we had 2 muff punts that we scored TDs on. One of those TDs, we only scored the TD because there was a taunting penalty. The guy came up and put his hand in his face. And I think it was the safety. And then that same safety had a drop pick 6, And then the big thing for me was Trent Williams was healthy in Cincinnati. Jimmy Garoppolo was healthy in Cincinnati. And in the NFC Championship game, Garoppolo had the thumb, he had the shoulder. Trent Williams had the high ankle sprain. None of those would have been healed by the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to say we couldn't have beaten them because the defense was definitely playing better by then. But I wasn't going to say it was a shoe-in either. Like some people say, if Tart would have caught that, we would have won our 6th Super Bowl. We would have had a chance. A good chance. I think I'd say at least a 50-50 chance. But kind of like same thing with the Eagles and Purdy. I'd say the same thing. Like if Purdy stays healthy, I think it's a 50-50 game. Whoever has the ball last probably wins that game. If we made it to the Chiefs, I'd say a little less, maybe 55-45 or 60-40. I don't know, but I'm just curious to see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I completely agree. There are no guarantees. If they beat the Rams, it was going to be a struggle to beat the Bengals. They barely beat them as it was. Now, that was on the road. And with the Chiefs, I just don't know if they've figured out Patrick Mahomes yet, but who knows? I think
who has, right?
If Charvarius Ward is healthy and if Emmanuel Mosley was healthy, then I think they have a much better chance. But again, last year, the Chiefs didn't really have any receivers that would make you go, oh, I want that guy on my team. And yet they still won because Mahomes is just that stinking good. So, if the Eagles with that defensive front can't beat Mahomes, then I don't know if the 49ers would have either.
Yeah, no, it's reasonable to say. The other thing I forgot to mention too, the big difference between the Niners playing the Bengals in Cincinnati and what they would have faced in the Super Bowl was Logan Wilson, their star middle linebacker, who's kind of like their Fred Warner, you could say. He's not Fred, but he's really good. He was out when we played in Cincinnati. And then Trey Hendrickson, their sort of, I call him Bosa Light, but a really good defensive end. He missed the whole second half of that game in Cincinnati. So, and they both played the whole Super Bowl against the Rams.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like I said, so a lot of things broke rice for us in Cincinnati. Jimmy and Trent were healthy. Logan and Trey Hendrickson were not. And so I think that you mix all that up. Again, not saying we would have lost, but I probably would have bet on Cincinnati. That's probably what I was saying. So.
Yeah, and you just never know. If Jimmy Garoppolo puts a little bit less on that throw to Emmanuel
Mosley. Or no, Emmanuel Sanders.
Emmanuel Sanders. Then maybe the 49ers win. There still was plenty of time for Mahomes, so I don't know that they would have won even then. If Jim Harbaugh doesn't call timeout right before Colin Kaepernick is about to run the ball into the end zone, then maybe the 49ers win that one. So you just never know. Little bitty things like that can change a game. And so it's hard to say, yeah, for sure we would have won.
No doubt about it. Well, Mark, it's been a real pleasure chopping it up with you today. I appreciate you coming on again, and we'll have to do it again soon. Whenever you're ready, I'll come back on your channel and we can stream to mine at the same time, like how we did today.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And it's been awesome. Everybody, let me go ahead and just fly your banner again so everybody can know where to see it. So Mark Adams at 49ers Camelot. You can find him at 49ers Web Zone for his writing, and then on YouTube for his YouTube channel. Really great interviews, much quicker and more concise than my shows. Mine tend to go on and on, so I apologize for that. But,
that's because I have big people like you and Matt Barrows and people like that I don't want to take up too much of your time. When you have little peons like me, you can just take how much ever time you want.
Stop it. Those are big people you're mentioning. I'm only big in stature, but not in content creation land. You and I are both pretty new at this. We both started this season. And so just happy to see you growing and happy to help any way I can. And so please don't be shy. I always consider it a favor for anybody who comes on, and I'll just say peace and go Niners.